Hello, everyone, and good evening with another edition of Speaker Circle. Today, I am so uber excited to have with me one of my very nearest and dearest best friends. She's also a defense attorney and a phenomenal mother, wife, and friend. Welcome with me, Miss Nadia Nickerson.
Hey, Leesa! Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hello. Thank you so much, Nadia, for joining us. And thank all of you who are joining us live right now on Facebook. Today's topic is one that is near and dear to both of us because it's about communicating. And we're actually talking about how to use the zones of regulation to persuasively and effectively communicate your thoughts while remaining poised if you're under pressure or not. So Nadia, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and why you're so big about effective communication.
Well, thank you, Leesa, so much for having me on this podcast today. I'm so excited. And as you know, Lisa's one of my best friends. She has been my best friend for 24 years. We were college roommates, sorority sisters, line sisters. So this has been I've seen the journey from where Leesa has been to where she is right now. So phenomenal. Well, one thing I wanted to talk about was that communication is something that a lot of people aren't really too strong on. And so as a defense attorney, I'm a civil litigation defense attorney, and I do a lot of depositions. And depositions are sworn testimonies that we have to take statements from the plaintiff about what happened in the accident or how their injuries affected them. And this is where you are in a courtroom, and the testimony that you give is no different than if you were testifying before a judge or jury. Now, in these depositions, you have, of course, the witness's attorney, and myself, and then the court reporter. And the court reporter is there to take down everything that is being said by each party. And during these depositions, my communication skills have flourished because one thing that in the deposition you are required, the court reporter can't take down two people speaking at the same time. So it has caused me to temper my communications. And it allows me to make sure that when I am asking a question, I take the time to listen to the statement that they're giving to me, the response, before I ask a follow-up question.
And that makes a great point because the court reporter can only type in one thing at a time. So imagine if all of us had somebody transcribing our conversation. It would make you a more effective communicator.
Right, exactly. And so since the court reporter can't take down two people speaking at the same time, it forces you to listen and make sure that you don't interrupt when someone's speaking. Because when you're interrupting, they are responding and you don't know based on the transcript, what question are they responding to? Are they answering the question that you started but didn't complete? Did they understand the question in its entirety? So it forces you to really take time to listen and be an effective listener.
Wow, that is powerful. I know that one of the things you and I have discussed, and for those who know Nadia and I know that we have had a colorful history in friends for 24 years. I say to her often, you're the one friend that has helped me really go through some difficult conversations and have some effective communication because it's hard. It's easy just to love people who love you and tell you what you want to hear. But when you have friends that are going to call you out and tell you the truth and you have difficult things that you have to communicate through, it's really strong. And one thing that you brought up to me was I interrupt a lot. And I know with you being now an attorney and having to be accountable for a court reporter, that is something that you're really passionate about, is people just speaking when their turns to speak. Now, when you're in the courtroom and someone's talking and or when you're doing a deposition or even in your everyday life, if you're allowing the person to finish their point, what if you have a question that you're just really wanting to ask? How do you regulate that where you're not interrupting them, but still able to keep abreast of what your thoughts are?
Well, when I am in a courtroom setting or I am having a conversation, I will jot down notes. And those are just little notes of something that it triggered my thought. So if I'm speaking to you and I want you to, you're finishing your thought, I want to make sure that I address the point that you make. So I'll jot down a note just to remind me to bring it back. But it also, when you can't do that, you also have to be a better listener. It makes you a better listener. So you can't think about what you're going to say. You can't think about, let me, figure out what rebuttal I'm going to say to the point. You really need to hone in and listen. And then when you hone in and listen, if you're not clear on what they're saying, you ask follow-up questions. You ask, well, what are you saying? I don't understand that. Can you elaborate? So that forces the person who is speaking, who I'm listening to explain further what thought they want to convey.
I love that, asking the clarifying questions.
So one thing I've learned on making my listening skills, I can give you an example, how I've transitioned this skill that I've learned in my professional career to my personal life. So for example, my husband and my niece were having a discussion. There was an issue where my niece had her shoes, some white cloths that she used, that she would sit by the door and use whenever she was going out or so. Well, my son would take those shoes and to walk the dog. Well, over time, as he was taking it, the white shoes were starting to get stained by the green grass. And so my niece started complaining to her uncle, my husband, saying, "Oh, my shoes are damaged. My shoes are damaged." And my husband, of course, we try to keep everybody accountable. So if my son damaged her shoes, we want him to replace it. So he's looking at the shoes and he's seeing green grass stains, but no damage. And so they were going back and forth. She was saying these shoes are damaged, damaged, damaged. But in her mind, she was just thinking they were dirty, and dirty equaled damage to her. My husband is seeing shoes that are dirty, no damage on it, and is trying to get an understanding as to where's the damage. So when I tell you this took place for 30 minutes, them going back and forth, until finally I had to come downstairs and say, okay, what's the problem? Where is the disconnect? And once I listened to my niece and hear what she was saying, and then hear what my husband was saying, I was able to bridge the gap and say, okay, this is where the disconnect. Well, but how often do you have a third party to interject in conversation?
Not often.
Not at all. So you have to be able to say, well, how do I maintain my composure and not get frustrated? Because both parties, my husband and my niece, were getting frustrated. Both of them were frustrated because they couldn't understand what points they were trying to convey. So that's where the zones of regulation rears its head. And I want to say thank you to you, because you are the person who showed me how zones of regulation came into being. So if you want to just explain, what I saw about zones of regulation.
Well, for those of you who are not familiar, the zones of regulation is a behavior tool that a lot of professionals use. I think we've shared, my son is on the spectrum. So he goes to a lot of behavioral therapies, and this is how we were able to learn about the zones of regulation. And there's 4 zones. It's much like a traffic light. There's the red, which you can imagine is the heated zone. You're upset, you're angry, you're irrational, and you're really not going to be an effective communicator. The yellow zone is when you're a little irritated, maybe you're cranky, tired, and you don't have 100% buy-in, but you're a little bit more presentable. And then the blue zone is when you're sad, you're feeling really upset about something. And then the green zone is ideally where you want to be. Having the awareness helps you to know where you are and how you're going to communicate. So I know, Nadia, you want to share a story when you were at my house with my son, Anderson, who was your god baby, and we were all talking to Anderson.
Yes. So Anderson, I'm going to say, really is the one that made me realize I can transition this skill set into my professional and personal life. So that one day that I was at your home, Anderson was very upset because he had some friends over that were either triggering him, and that's our little safe word. He was getting upset because either they weren't sharing their toys, or they were bossing him, or they were making him feel not his best. So he comes downstairs and he is very, very angry and very upset. And I mean, literally just could not be contained. And Leesa, in a calm, soothing voice, was like, Anderson, what color are you? And he was like, I am red. I am red. And Leesa was able to ask him questions as to why he was red, what was making him red, what we can do to get out of the red zone. And the more I was talking to him in such a soothing, calm, non-threatening manner, he slowly, right before my eyes, went from red to yellow to green. And when I say I saw it, it was so powerful. He was like, Mommy, I'm good. I'm green. And so I just said, this skill set can really de-escalate a lot of conversations when you are in the heated discussion with someone in the courtroom, a friend that you're having a dialogue over some, politics. It really can de-escalate a lot of your frustration. If you know you're getting angry, you're red,
exactly,
you're going to be able to communicate your thoughts clearly to the other person. And it's definitely not going to be communicated the way you want it to be.
That is so powerful, because how can you really fully engage in conversation and actively listen if you are already triggered with emotions and reactions, and your emotions are not in control? So no, I do think it's powerful. And from this, I think you've come up with 4 very practical steps on how we can use the zones of regulation. So please share with all of our listeners, because I think it's brilliant. And I love how you have transcended this into your personal life as well as your professional life.
Well, exactly. So I'm going to give you a story, because this is really how I decided or was able to transition it from my from my professional life to personal. So when I'm litigating a case, litigation is all frustrating. Everybody's trying to win their case, and they want to put the best information out there to persuade a jury, a judge, or what have you. But you can't be angry that the point that you're trying to make gets lost in translation. So what I've come to realize is when I'm in a deposition or when I'm in a heated argument, I have to remain calm, okay? I have to keep a level head, because if I just am showing my anger, it's going to not be conveyed well to the other party. They're going to escalate, and it's just going to be 2 escalated people trying to have a dialogue. So I really, truly remain calm. And
I know you and I love to say, sorry, I am interrupting you. We love to say, you getting angry is not going to make your point stick to someone more, right? So staying calm is so important when you're communicating.
Exactly. So I will remain calm, and I allow the other person to complete their thoughts in its entirety. And I know that may be difficult for people, because everyone wants to get that word in, they want to get their thoughts in, but I am just sitting there and I'm listening, and I'll let that person speak, and I'll let them complete their thoughts. And then once they are completely said what all they wanted to say, I now respond in a non-threatening manner. And I will say, okay, so this is the point I'm trying to make, X, Y, and Z. And if they are still interjecting, interrupting, again, you take it back to step 1, remain calm, and you allow them to get their point out, and then you interject. And once they've calmed down and you respond back, you state your response in a non-threatening manner with confidence. And you just state it. And that to me has been tried and true, because people can't argue with themselves. They will not argue with someone who is not going toe to toe with them. So
engage them. Exactly.
So and this really can transfer into not only professional, with your personal life, with your spouse, your children, your friends, anyone. You can really use that skill set anywhere.
Absolutely. And hey, Lydia, I love that. Like you said, keep calm when you're trying to communicate with someone. You want to make sure you allow the person to complete their thought. Respond in a non-threatening manner. I want to marinate on that. That's so important, because when we're having, I know you use the word litigation, but if you're having a difference of opinion with someone you're communicating, you're automatically charged. You want to give them your point, and it is threatening. And if you can truly be powerful and respond and be non-threatening, I mean, it's powerful. And then I loved how you said, state your point with confidence. Definitely is so important.
It is because, one thing that everybody wants to be right, but in conversations, you really just want to learn about why a person believes their point, and you want to convey your thoughts as to why your thoughts are, the right thought. But you just can't do that aggressively. You can't interrupt, because that's so disrespectful. That makes the person think that you don't value my thought. You don't value me and what I have to say. So you have to get in or cut short or try to correct me before I can complete my thought. So one thing with my spouse, my husband and I, we've been married almost 20 years, and this is how I can transfer this skill into my personal life. So one thing, it doesn't, you learn to pick your battles. You learn to realize there's not every question and not every issue got to be discussed. Not everything got to be a big deal.
True.
So once you learn, okay, I will argue about this point and I will state my position. If we have to agree to disagree, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Because it's not okay if it escalates and I'm in the red, he's in the red, and we both are now triggered and it's just a hostile home environment. So
absolutely.
And then one thing with friends, like we recently just had a girls trip with my other best friends from college. And we, of course, as girlfriends, anyone get together who haven't seen each other since the quarantine, since the last girls trip, like 2 or 3 years ago, there's a lot of things we want to catch up on. We want to talk about what's going on love life, what's going on with the kids, professional, promotions, demotions, everything. So we want to know what's going on. And when we got together, I started to get triggered because everybody was talking at the same time. I was like, this is crazy. So once we had to implement the zones of regulation and allow everyone the opportunity to speak, and we had to allow everyone to get their thoughts out and listen to everyone's positions. And once we did that, we learned so much about each other. We learned how, what things make all of us uneasy that we probably wouldn't have known if we didn't have that platform to speak it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why it's so important to have relationships where you can foster, you can be vulnerable and have deep conversations. And that's what's going to ultimately elevate your communication, because it's not something that you read in a book, and you really can't. You can tell people, oh, I'll be patient, I'll let you get your thought through, but you don't really know that until you go through a situation where someone has you in the red. And when you're in the red, if you're able to get down, de-escalate yourself, and still effectively communicate, that's how you know you can use the zones of regulation to regulate your own behaviors.
And that is very important. In so many settings, you need to be able to calm yourself down, because of course, there's plenty of opportunities and plenty of things that's going to keep you in the red. And you know that you want to try to de-escalate. And we don't always have a third party. And even with my children, I've taught my children how to temper their communications, because when they come in, and
I love it. I love how your kids communicate.
Yeah, so my children, for those, are big basketball players, and they love playing basketball. And they're one is 10, one is 12, and so when they're playing, there's always a foul. There's someone getting fouled. Someone's calling a foul,
and somebody's in the red zone, I'm sure, getting upset.
So they'll come up and they'll come in, and they are both charged. And what I've come to realize is that because of how I've been communicating with them, they are able to say, wait, I am speaking first, let me speak, and then you can answer, and then you can respond. So they'll tell me, Mom, I was going up for this layup, and my brother clocked me in the head, that was a foul. And then he'll say, okay, you know what? I was, no, that wasn't a foul. He stepped out of bounds, and that's why, that foul didn't count. And they will speak and they will talk in such a non-aggressive manner. And I am like Judge Judy, listening to both sides, and I rendered opinion. And I really believe that is setting them up for success, because
it is.
Because when you are talking to a spouse, to their friends, to their college roommates, it allows them to listen and say, you know what, I'm not the only one here. I need to hear what they're saying, and then I can see where the disconnect is. So I am very proud of my children and being able to learn this at such a young age, and they can implement it with their friends and with their colleagues as they get older.
Absolutely, because it's not all about being right. A lot of times we allow our egos to trigger what our responses are going to be. But if you're truly listening to understand, that's the first step in communication. And I've had about maybe like 12 of these episodes, and every speaker that's come on has said the same thing: listening, listening, listening. So that's important. I loved how you brought up having that court reporter when you have to have somebody transcribe your conversations. And that's what I encourage all of you to do, to imagine someone having to transcribe how your dialogue is with someone. And if you are not allowing people to get their thoughts across, then you're not being effective in communication. Now, how do we translate this to our parents? Because a lot of us are in the age where you said choose your battles, right, Nadia? And you and I both have foreign mothers, which we love dearly. However, sometimes there are certain people that you know will trigger you in the red zone because of whatever they may say. So what do you do, and how do you communicate with someone that you know may trigger you into the red? How do you stay out of the red and have to become self-aware with that?
Well, Leesa, you know, like you said, my parents are from Jamaica, and my mom is one of those people who is really stuck in her ways, and there is no changing. So growing up, childhood, you don't negotiate. There's no, let's talk about
it. It is what it is.
It is what it is. And so what I've learned is that because my mom gets me in the red out the gate, it is just, I need to now choose my battles with her and be able to regulate myself. I can't regulate her behavior. I need to know I'm going in, I'm talking to my mother. My mom is not going to see eye to eye with me. So there's no need for me to try to get her to persuade her position, try to get her to listen. She's not. So it's okay. I know that I love them where they are. I know my mom is going to be difficult on a certain issue. I just take a step back, remain calm, allow them to speak, use those regulations, allow them to speak, get their thoughts out. And then I will respond, Mom, I think that this X, Y, and Z should be done. And we leave it from there. And the example would be when my mother is planning on moving. And so I went down there to help her declutter her garage. And when I tell you, Leesa, it was a challenge. It was a challenge because everything that I thought had no use, she had no use for, she was like, I want to keep, I want to keep, I want to keep. And I felt myself getting in the red. But ultimately, I had to say, remain calm. Mom, okay, if you want to keep this broom that you've had for 20 years, I'm going to allow you to keep your broom and just move on. And so that's
and regulate yourself. Yeah,
exactly. So that's really what that's my response to try to avoid people who keep you in the red zone. But if you must interact with them, try to regulate your reaction.
Yeah, because self-regulation is something that everyone needs to continually work on. A lot of times we put it on children, but as adults, if you can learn to encounter circumstances and identify, okay, I'm really getting upset, then you will be powerful and you'll be able to effectively communicate with the conversation. For those of you who are just joining in, thank you. We have so many great comments in the chat. We love you all. Thank you. Kalila and Damani, who were the other two of our girlfriends, they're in the chat too. So thank you, ladies, for showing up. But the zones of regulations that we're talking about is a systematic cognitive behavioral approach, and it's used to teach self-regulation. They use it in ABA therapy, which Anderson is in, and we've just taken it to a whole nother level because we realize even though we're adults, we can try to self-regulate and look at the zones. And the 4 zones are the red zone, which you're going to be extremely heightened. You'll be rage, anger. You're just irrational. And the yellow zone is for somebody who's frustrated, you have anxiety, maybe a lot of excitement, or even some silliness that you're just inappropriately silly right now, right? The green zone is where you're calm, you have optimal thoughts, you're focused, you're happy. And then the blue zone is when you are feeling sad, you're tired, or you're sick. So if you can look at those zones, it's impactful. And Nadia, I tell you, I just love how you have transcribe this into your personal life and your professional career as well. If any of you have questions for Nadia, please put them in the chat as we get ready to wrap this thing up. Are there any last thoughts that you want to share with all of our listeners today, Nadia?
One thing I just would say is that overall, to be an effective communicator is to be a better listener. And so many people don't want to be heard. And I have to just comment and say that I truly enjoy listening to people's stories. Even when you go to McDonald's or you're going to the dry cleaners, listening to people and just express what they're going through and asking follow-up questions. That means so much to people because that shows that someone is really taking the time to think about what they're saying, asking questions that they feel, oh, wow, I'm important. This person is coming in and asking me follow-up questions. So it's not just, oh, I'm going to listen or pretend or hear what they're saying. It really is to actively listen and ask follow-up questions because you'll learn so much about people in general and what they're going through. I think right now with the COVID crisis, the pandemic is something that is worrying to everyone. People are thinking about what they're doing with their school, with their children in school. You really want to give an opportunity to express what they're feeling and ask them what you can do or what they're thinking about doing to de-escalate the situation. So that's what my little takeaway is. Just everyone try to be a better listener than they are a speaker.
Absolutely. And I did have a question that we got for you, Nadia, and that was, how do you encourage other people to listen? Like, let's say you're a good listener, but if someone else is having a problem listening, if it's a professional colleague, how do you encourage other people to listen? And once you finish your comment, I'm going to share a story that I was so impressed when I heard you on a deposition call with another attorney. But what do you do to encourage other people to listen without pretty much, because you're in a professional zone, you can't say to them, hey, you're a horrible listener, stop interrupting me.
Well, I think one thing that I do, and I need to probably do a better job at, is that I really will I have a good mental note to check people on how they're not listening well. Like I will pull evidence back and say, okay, well, when you said this, and I'll be able to regurgitate what they're saying. And once you start showing people that you are saying something and you're not listening to even what you're saying, it really makes people think, dang, I am bad. If I'm making and my points aren't making sense because I'm keeping track earlier. And I get my husband on this a lot. He'll say something and I'll be like, that's not what you said earlier. And so that's a way that that's a way that I will kind of keep track of people and saying, listen, if you to improve your listening skills, you have to take time to listen to what you're saying.
That's true.
And so if they realize, hey, I'm getting called to the carpet time after time by Nadia that I did say this, and now I'm saying this, and now I'm saying this, that really is, my husband just said, okay, now.
I know, that's shocking.
Now that really shows that you're not as good of a listener as you think. And so that's kind of how
so lead by example. It's probably just like leading by example. The story I was going to share, Nadia was at my house and she was on a call with another attorney, and he was really in the red zone. He was in the red zone, and you were doing a great job staying in the green zone. And he just kept trying to trigger you and inflate you and get you upset, but you stayed calm. And you were like, it's duly noted, this will happen. And you stuck to the facts. And I thought that was phenomenal. And that's what I do want to encourage others, is that if you are somebody is in the red zone with you, then you want to continue to stay where you keep them de-escalated by staying in the green zone. So
exactly, Leesa. So that's exactly right. And in those situations, litigation, you're always tense, and you just have to be able to remain poised and professional, because that's ultimately makes you look like the reasonable one. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, Nadia, I just thank you very much. Thank you for helping to enhance communication in my life and my personal life. And I've transcended some of these skills into my professional life and my personal life as well. And you've just been a dear sister and family to us. We love you. So excited. I hope everyone out there has got some type of value from it. And we appreciate you listening to us. You can check out Nadia. She is on Facebook. Her and her lovely husband share a page, which is so awesome.
Yes.
Which is good stuff. Yeah, but we'll continue to listen and be effective. Please continue to show up and share your comments with us. We appreciate everyone out there who's listened to Speaker Circle tonight. Let's continue to use effective communication so we can all grow together. Have an amazing evening. Thanks again, Nadia.
Thank you, Leesa, for having me.